Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Gold Standard with Alan Mosley, and here's Alan Mosley.
Did you forget the name of the show there for a second?
No, I didn't.
Okay,
I'm just having one of those really slow moments, you know.
Welcome to the.
Oh God, yeah. What's it called again?
So welcome back to the Gold Standard. I am your host, Alan Mosley, and if you called us last week, we had our first interview ever with the great Sherry Voluntary and her husband, Michael Clark.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And that was kind of an interesting interview because it was right before the state libertarian convention for the state of Tennessee here, and so they were in the middle of traveling back and forth and between work in Knoxville, traveling for the convention, doing our show. It was a really whirlwind time, and we really didn't get a chance to kind of put a bow on the topic of Sherry's new podcast and ventures.
Right, sure.
So, I could do that, but I'm not getting paid enough for that sort of free publicity. So to do the work for me is Sherry Voluntary herself, but this time via Skype.
Yeah.
All the way from the exotic land of Knoxville, Tennessee.
Look at that.
Sherry, how are you doing today?
I'm wonderful, thank you.
So you just heard my rambling little intro there after we forgot the name of our own show. So share with us what you are up to now. This entire 5 days since we last spoke. What is new in your world?
Well, I survived the party convention. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. And I have a new podcast that I just got. So we haven't had our premiere episode, right? So we've released a bonus episode, an interview with Alex Merced and Joshua Smith, who are running for chair and vice chair of the party. And then next week, I believe, we're going to release an interview we did with Adam Kokesh. So that's going to be really fun. And then hopefully we'll be ready to go and have our world premiere. So that'll be fun.
So what you're telling me is that you already have like 17 episodes in the can before the announcement of the Sherry Voluntary show. That's what you're trying to say.
I wish we did. Yeah. But no, I have some work to do.
Okay.
For sure.
So where right now can people find you to support your new show?
Well, I would go to the Facebook, Sherry Voluntary Podcast. See, I can remember my show name.
Okay.
It helps that it's my own name. But, so that's the page that we have. And go there. We'll release it there. But we're also going to be on Steemit. And I think we're going to release our episodes a week later on YouTube. Because, screw YouTube, right?
Yeah. as we broadcast on YouTube. Ugh.
Yeah.
They're not listening. We actually talked about this earlier. I hope to get so big one day that if we're drinking a soft drink of a major brand or something, we're so popular that they send us letters saying don't run our good name through the mud with your nasty show and
your nasty
stuff
freedom.
Like that. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was trying to be so free. Yeah, that's right.
I got that, man. Yeah, that's YouTube. If you, I think they flag if you say liberty or freedom or the enemy of the state, things like that. They probably flag you and demonetize you or shut you down. So.
How dare they rob us of the 15 cents we've made so far doing
what's even funnier than that is they just flagged us 4 times if she's right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the fact that they can detect the word flagged in our show now is over. It's just
I know what to do to the competition.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like remember these people that have what are those things called at your house? Nexa or Lexi or whatever those little robots are.
Alexa, yeah.
Alexa, yes. And all of a sudden you're just out of nowhere it just starts laughing at you violently. You know what I mean? And I've been hearing a lot of stories about that happening with people. It's very scary.
Or you have a 15-year-old son, like myself, who likes to say things to Alexa like, Alexa, how do you make a bomb? Alexa, how do you put up an arm resistance?
Then the doorbell rings, right?
Yeah.
Violently resist the state. Define,
Well, I mean, G.I. Joe taught me that knowing was half the battle. Yeah. So we gotta know these things.
Yeah.
How dare you be educated?
Oh my goodness.
I'm we're already on the lists, okay? I'm sure. So when the black, helicopters come with the guys and they rappel down and shoot your mom in the face in front of you, just know it's your fault.
It's always being shot in the face with Sherry. Have you noticed that? They can't just gut shot you like a respectable person. They have to shoot you in the face.
Just because it takes that much more skill, you know.
Yes, exactly.
If you destroy the face, you've destroyed the person. Like,
but
no
then they're just gonna put on their Guy Fawkes mask, and so
we need to get us one of those.
We do. Is that what we need to do? We need to be the 980 millionth libertarian show that's a bunch of people wearing Guy Fawkes masks. Get your Cheetos out while you're at it.
Just spray paint something funny on it, you know?
I bet people are going to start thinking, that guy's really, really belligerent towards, like, libertarian stereotypes. And I am. But, whatever. Be that... It is true. So that's the intro. People know where to find the Sherry Voluntary Show. So are you going with the Sherry Voluntary Show, or are we going to do my suggestion, which is Quite Contrary with Sherry Voluntary?
I think that will be a segment.
That is yeah. I'm telling you, that's gold. That's going to work.
It is gold. I think we're going to go with Sherry Voluntary Podcast. Mm-hmm. Just so when I get offered like my late night talk show, that's available, and it won't be confusing for people. Okay. So
your late night talk show is it's 3 a.m. on cable local access.
I do it. I totally do it.
Yeah.
I'm up at 3 a.m. a lot of the time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think we're good. I think we're good to go for the rest of the show. So Sherry, if she's good, she's going to stick around with us to cover some of our topics for today. Because now that we've gotten a taste of having like a guest or a co-host, I can now just pull up a website and I can just sit back and just hang out while the adults talk.
There you go.
I thought you did that anyways.
Yeah, you're killing me. You're stealing my thunder here. So we're gonna start off. I'm gonna pull up the browser here, which is gonna minimize Sherry. Thank goodness for everyone. Which is actually not true, because you know how Skype works. So there's the little Sherry window right there.
Yeah, she's up there in the corner.
Yeah. So I can't escape Sherry, even though the audience at home is looking at the browser.
I've been told I'm like cancer. Well. Incurable cancer.
Yes. So anyway, the very first subject we're going to talk about today that's really hot in the news cycle right now is the Omnibus spending bill. Because it's Saturday or Sunday that we're scheduled for another government shutdown in hard quotations if we don't pass another spending bill.
I guess. I mean, I was watching on the news this morning. They were talking about just a few minutes ago that the House had enough votes to go ahead and send the omnibus bill on through, and in order to avert it. So
the House has sent it through. I don't know if any amendments got voted on. It still has to go to the Senate.
Yeah, it has to go to the Senate.
I think the Senate is really the tougher challenge because the GOP has a bigger advantage in the House.
Right.
Whereas 3 or 4 turncoats in the Senate means a bill's not going through.
That's right.
Now, but of course
3 or 4.
Yeah. Well, I say that, but I mean there were some Democrats that voted yes. It wasn't 100% all the Democrats voted no in the House. So,
I was just thinking, total number of senators equals total number of turncoats.
Yeah, exactly. You're a turncoat. So the first link that I have pulled up here is, we're not going to go through this obviously because this is not going to be a 27-hour broadcast, but if you'll notice this little number right here in the corner, this is the PDF of the actual omnibus bill.
Wow. That
is being voted on right now. Mm-hmm. It is 2,232 pages long. Now this was sent out to congressmen not even 24 hours before the scheduling of the vote on the bill. So I'll ask you, Blake, because I know you're an avid reader. What's the chance that you could have read, understood, broken down line by line the budgetary repercussions of 2,232 pages from midnight last night to right now?
I have a hard time just like reading the back of a cereal box. So to me, I think that I don't think that's really possible. I mean, you and what army? Right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of reading.
and I'm going to show one more link as it pertains to the omnibus bill, and then we're going to have a little discussion. So there's Rand Paul and his just fuzzy-headed little self. And he says, well, here it is, all 2232 budget-busting pages. The House already started vote. The Senate is expected to soon. No one has read it. Congress is broken. Just a real quick...
Who wrote it?
Well, first it was your typical smoke-filled room insider bill that was put together, so that there are people who were party to it being put together. But the whole point of Congress is you're supposed to put things onto the floor. You're supposed to have discussion and debate about it. Potentially submit some amendments and then have a final vote.
Right.
You're not supposed to do all of that behind a closed door.
Exactly.
And then when there's literally 12 hours before the vote, say, okay, yes or no, give me your answer.
And hand them a wad like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez.
So I'm gonna put away Rand, but I'm just gonna say about Rand real quick. I want to like Rand Paul. I want to like him because he's got that really nice last name that gets us all really excited. And sometimes he's so good, but I wish and Sherry, you can tell me what you think about this. Don't you wish, you see the opportunity there for him to just go full liberty and not say Congress is broken or this sucks. Just say government is unfixable, I'm moving on. Just, if he decided that tomorrow was going to be his last day in Senate, just lay it all out there in a complete ANCAP statement of this is unredeemable. It doesn't work, and it can't be fixed. I'm not submitting an amendment. It cannot be fixed. You all don't represent anyone. Goodbye. I wish he would just do it because it would make us feel good. It wouldn't be great for his political ambitions in Washington, of course. But you see the writing on the wall with a select few of our representatives in office that they feel that way and they're trying so hard to play the game. But know that when something like this happens, you just throw up your arms it doesn't matter. Yeah. Nothing I say matters. Yeah. So what's your kind of feelings on seeing something like the Omnibus bill and how and you saw the look on Rand's face about it. How does that make you feel when you see, well, there's literally 7 congressmen in all of America I feel comfortable with, and that's what they're up against?
Yeah. I think it's just, another indication of how, the state is not fixable, like you said. And, usually they put on the show, at least, they have some debate or whatever, and they'll put on the show before they screw us. But, with these kind of things, they don't even put on you don't even get dinner first before they get all rapey. So, I don't even care about dinner anymore. I just want them. I don't want to go on the date. You know what I'm saying? I don't even want to be a part of that. So, and with Rand Paul and others, Amaj, different people, Freitas, I like them. I think they're going in the right direction. But like you said, I would love for them to just stand up and really lay it out. But then that's even fewer people that are even close to representing anything that we're about. So besides, burning it down and starting all over, I don't know, what else we do. The other thing about this is you see them complaining about it, people saying, oh, we didn't have time to read it and all that. But do you see anybody running out to fix that problem? Where is that being fixed? They're able to complain about it and get it on record that they're complaining about not having time to read it. But who's fixing it? Who's really working on it? That's something, if we really want to fix government, then that would be one of the first places to start, is simplified bills and time to read them and all that jazz.
Well, I think that's, that's sort of the catch-22, though, is that any reasonable thinking person can look at this situation and say, well, that, of course we're against government, period, but if you're going to try to meet someone halfway and say, well, let's have a conversation about what's the phrase you hear, responsible governing. I don't think anyone in their right mind can say this is responsible governing. And we know that there are people that are saying, come on, this isn't good. But you're right. Even if a bill gets submitted, even if somebody steps forward and says, hey, I've got some legislation to change some parliamentary procedures, because this is not good representation,
Right.
it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, when where everyone's going to be upset today, but it's still going to be split down party lines, because at the end of the day, all the GOPers who were saying Obamacare was a joke from minute one because no one had a chance to read it, and everyone was dogging Nancy Pelosi because of her famous statement of, you have to pass the bill to see what is in it.
Right.
And then, of course, then you get something like the Omnibus bill with a Republican president, Republican House, and Republican Senate, and it was submitted at the last minute, and no one's read it. So that clearly tells me that the number of people that on a principled stance don't want to see Washington functioning this way, it doesn't matter. I don't care if the bill is, a meteor of gold just fell on the ground and we're going to give everyone a coin. It doesn't matter what it is. Yeah. It's just a matter of this isn't the way Washington works. The people who on a principled position feel that way and therefore will, say no the way a Ron Paul would have.
Right.
You can literally count them on your fingers.
Yeah.
And the people who will say that right now because the winds are blowing against them, but tomorrow will keep their mouths shut because their party whip says to do so.
Yeah.
They are so far and away the majority in Congress that's why nothing changes, because irregardless of today's issue, totally not talking about the Omnibus bill, tomorrow Rand could submit legislation saying we're going to change the way we vote on things, and it won't pass.
Right.
It's not going to pass.
Right.
Yeah. It's the matter of the centralized power. People aren't going to vote themselves out of power who have made their whole careers on having power.
Exactly.
So all they do is play the game and they're out in the media saying this is terrible and that's terrible, but they don't they look at the issues and not the solutions. Like they don't really ever present solutions. And we had something like a couple weeks ago, the Right to Try Act that was in there, and they could have actually done real good for real people, actually helped people, and what they do, they played politics and they did not pass it. So, I'm kind of, opted out of I have to be subject to the system because I live here, but I don't care about the system. The system is not going to be fixed. And that's why, I don't involve myself in the electoral process usually, because voting is not going to fix it. Michael Malice has said, you can't vote yourself free and you're not going to spend yourself wealthy. So those are things that we have to remember, that it's always culture has to change first. And we have to change the minds of people, real people, before they put pressure on the politicians to change. Because the politicians are like kids in a candy store that, there's no adults around. They're just going to keep their hands in the candy jars. And they're going to keep fleecing us. So we've got to change people.
Yeah, I know one last note that I wanted to share on the Omnibus bill before we move on is some of us saw the tweets late last night from Representative Massey of Kentucky, because we've talked about him on the show before, being one of the good ones.
Yeah.
And he was tweeting,
Good.
And he tweeted out he was trying to propose an amendment to the bill where he was trying to take out some of the measures that basically roll over his gun control. Because, of course, the spending bill is going to have tagged onto it all sorts of different, all sorts of various agendas are going to be pushed through. Yeah. And the whole idea there is that, well, we have to pass a spending bill, so what better time for me to put forth my little agenda than in some other bill.
Right.
And he was, like, at midnight last night, he was saying, I'm here at the office at, going on 1 a.m, and they're telling me I have 60 minutes left to put together my little amendment and get it signed, and I've got to send it to so and so's office and all that. And
that's what you were showing online last night.
Yeah, exactly. I was tweeting that out last night.
Yeah, tweeting it out.
And so, and I know I saw a couple of clips or videos of Massey, and he was just kind of grinning, but it was that grinning of, isn't this so absurd? It's like, what can you do? It's like, well, clearly I've just been written out of the process, so I might as well just smile.
Yeah.
And you were to keep from crying.
Yeah, you were just saying, you were talking about that, it's not fixable, but I have to live under the system because I live here. It's like that. If that kind of, I don't know if defeat is the word, but if that kind of just being resolved to it is what an actual congressman has to deal with, then good knows what we have to deal with. Because we basically have no say. He actually has a vote in the House, and he basically has no say.
But I think that's an indicator of it's all just political theater. You know, the whole system now is not run by any representation. Like, they get some things through, like, everything that we see is just for us to see. I don't think that those are the people actually controlling things. We never voted or elected anyone who actually runs things. Yeah. That is my opinion.
We could have a really long conversation on another episode about the legion of bureaucrats who literally, not figuratively, but quite literally weren't elected by any electoral body, who make all sorts of decisions that affect us.
Right.
You remember a couple of years ago where the guy from, I think it was the FDA, went into the artisanal cheese maker's shop, and cheese has been aged on these boards in the same way for hundreds, if not 1,000 years. And all of a sudden, this one stupid government official thinks that this is dangerous and is going to hurt people. No evidence, nothing, and almost ruins and destroys an entire industry. And when you talk about destroying an industry, you're not talking about, hurting business, which so many people like to do. You're talking about real people who depend on these for their livelihood. Yeah. So we need to remember that there's always people behind things that government does. It's not even, businesses are people. They're backed by people. They're owned by people. And for one guy who's got a little FDA stamp on him to be able to do that is incredibly ridiculous.
Well, I think the point there is that it becomes important for people like us when we're debating these sort of topics on our respective shows to really get the message across that we're not here to debate who should have been appointed or who should have been elected to that role. We're debating that role shouldn't exist. It has so much power centralized into it that I don't feel comfortable with anyone assuming it, because it's just bound to go awry. And when he does make a totally reckless decision with no oversight whatsoever, at that point, what difference does it make what party he came from? Yeah. It's been done, and now people are in pain. Well, so we value the decentralization of power, or just the flat out elimination of such a position.
All this regulation,
we're not saying Joe Bob resign, we want Jane. That's irrelevant. Yeah. That doesn't fix anything. We want the position gone.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I want my can of soup at the grocery store to be $1 again instead of $3.
Yeah, well,
and regulation makes everything so much more expensive.
Yeah, it's just a tax on consumers. That's all.
That's a big part of it.
Well, we're going to move on to a different story, because if there's one thing we can't do, if Massey can't do anything about it, I'm pretty sure me and Sherry can't do anything about it. So we're going to move on. Yeah, right. So we're going to move on to something that, I mean, it's a sad story, but it's a story with a hell of a lot better ending than a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. So, unbeknownst to most people who were just getting their news from CNN or MSNBC, there was actually another school shooting. This just a couple of days ago.
Yeah. Well, let me interject on this one. I'm going to tell you this. This was yesterday morning when this happened, right?
Was it yesterday?
It was yesterday, right, guys?
Yesterday, I think.
Okay, so about noon, I decided to, for whatever reason, I checked my email or something, and here I am. I'm on AOL. Of course, I'm archaic. I'm one of the last people in the world that still has AOL. But I went on there and I looked, and I see this little thing. This mass shooting occurred in Maryland, and I'm like, why isn't everybody going buck nuts about this? And I read a little further, and that's the article that showed up, and it's just. This is just classic media baloney, and you guys just tear it up.
So this article, real quick, we'll feature this and then we'll move on. This is from USA Today. It's written by John Bacon. What a tasty name. John Bacon. See, we're already distracted. This is what we can't have a show. It's too easy. So, gunman at Maryland High School dies after armed school officer intervenes. 2 others injured. So, as of this reading, we hope this stays this case. There were 2 students who were shot. One was in stable condition. One was in critical condition. But as of this moment, they are both survivors of the attack. So there was only one confirmed death right now, which is the gunmen themselves.
Yeah.
And we don't like to read their names, but it was a 17-year-old gunman who was right before classes at Great Mills High in Maryland. It's a school of about 1,500 students, just a little bit south of Washington, D.C. He came in with a Glock, so he had a handgun on him. So let's go over some of the differences and details.
Sure.
So not an AR-15,
Right.
Not an assault rifle or what have you. Yeah. He was 17, and so he was obviously getting access to a firearm so that he could commit the act, and a law saying he couldn't have it was irrelevant because he did.
Well,
there's a law saying you're not supposed to shoot people.
Yeah,
too.
there's also a law saying, well, I mean, as soon as he ran into the gun-free zone ferry barrier, he was just repelled off.
Well, and in Maryland, I read somewhere that in Maryland, actually, in that state, it is illegal for someone under the age of 21 to possess a pistol.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have fairly strict handgun laws in Maryland anyway. I mean,
it worked great, didn't it?
Yeah, it worked fantastic.
Hell yeah.
Well, let's talk about what did work. What did work is. He ran into the St. Mary's County Sheriff Tim Cameron, who they were still sorting out the events, but from what we understand, Deputy Cameron approached the shooter, actually warned him to drop his weapon and stop what he was doing. The gunman did not comply, tried to return fire, and in the exchange, the gunman was taken down.
Yep.
It's extremely worthy of note before we discuss this a little bit. So the time from which the shooting began to the time from which the shooter was neutralized was like basically a minute.
Yeah, it was really short.
And we're sitting here as of this reading with 0 fatality or casualties other than the shooter himself.
Right. Other than the one who caused it.
And so I'm going to switch back over to Sherry, who, so we're surprised to find out, everyone hears the phrase, and I try to stay away from phrases that sound too much like propaganda, because I want the facts of a case to like make the claim, not catchy slogans.
Yeah.
But we've heard the slogan from the gun rights side of the argument that says the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, not fancy laws and barriers.
Yeah.
This kind of looks like a good guy with a gun stopped the attack. I mean, tell me where I'm wrong in the assessment that everything that was said about responsible firearms leading to stopping evil, tell me how that's not the case in this incident.
Right. No, it absolutely is. And the thing is that, the left doesn't want to cover this story because a guy with a gun is the hero in it, and he kept people from getting killed. And the right doesn't want to cover this story because they're so busy backing the blue that didn't go into the school and do their job that, they don't want to cover it either. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. You can see it, my gears start bleeping myself. Yeah, I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. And the thing is that this is what people have to understand. They conspire against us. Like, they don't get in a back room and have to talk about it, but they're so driven by their agendas that it works to conspire against people actually getting an understanding. So you have to pull away from all that news coverage in a way and start looking at things and really learning to see the world again as it is, and see that just because there's a great quote by H.L. Mencken, who I adore. He said, "For every complex problem, there is an answer that is clear, simple, and wrong. We have to remember that just because something seems to make sense doesn't mean it's the right solution."
That's right.
That often, it makes no sense to some people that people being armed is a solution to gun violence, but it is. That is the solution. Mm-hmm. So, and cops willing to do their friggin' jobs, like, you got somebody armed there and they just wait for backup. Like, no, you have a gun right now. Yeah. Like, that situation in Florida is
aggravating.
Well, you just brought up something.
There were 4 of them, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Now you just brought up something that I think is kind of an interesting aspect that I'd like you to elaborate a little bit more on, which is it's totally understandable why the left side ideologues don't want to cover the story, because it just flies 180 degrees in the face of their agenda that, well, if we can just totally eliminate access to firearms across the board, because I mean, let's not kid ourselves, that's really the goal. If we can just magically make all firearms disappear from the face of the earth, then, well, of course things like this won't happen. So we
but
know
not all of them.
Not all, but we know why they don't want to cover the story. But you made the point that really the right side of the spectrum doesn't really want to cover this story either, because then that would come with sort of an inherent admittance that, well, I mean, we want, hurrah, guns, but we also have to admit that some people aren't responsible with guns, and we also have to admit some of the people not responsible with guns are state actors who are the people who we all think should have all the guns. It turns out some of them are good with a gun, some of them are not. And so you feel like this story's not getting a lot of legs because nobody wants to cover it.
Right. And we also have to remember that constitutionally, they have no mandate to protect us. They don't have to protect us. The Supreme Court has said that. They're not constitutionally obligated to protect us. So this idea of protection by the police, I mean, I feel more afraid of the police than I do of anybody, walking around with a gun, because not only do they have a weapon that can kill me, but they have the authority behind them to make it okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's the problem. The young man who was just shot Sunday in his own backyard in California, like, you see the video that they had, they didn't identify themselves as police, and they shot this man, and he says, like, in that, hold up your hands, and then right immediately, there's no time between that, gun. Like, there was not, what did you think was going to have nothing in his hands? Like, and people are going to try and make that okay because somehow they're heroes because they put on a uniform. I'm tired of it. The right is just as guilty in this gun problem as the left, because they love the authority. They're too busy staring at the belt buckle, if you will, of cops all the time to actually step back and say, we've got a problem, and it's a problem in the culture of the system with cops. There's a problem with, the thin blue line used to mean that they were standing between us and the bad guys.
Right.
Now it means them standing together against us. So there's got to be a change in the culture, and there are no good cops until good cops stand up and say, these are bad cops and we don't want them here. Until we can get a culture of that, then I don't have any sympathy for the police in these situations. Like, you have to be able to stand up and be willing to stand up against your own brotherhood if you actually want credibility. They have no credibility with me anymore.
Where have you heard that statement before, Blake, where there are no good cops until you've heard that somewhere?
I have definitely heard that before. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So,
although I will say, I don't 100% agree with you guys, because there are good cops. But I think the good ones live in fear of the bad ones. But
exactly.
I'm sure they do, but that's why we would say get out. If I could not be a cop and be frightened into silence by the organization of which I represent and get my paychecks from being tyrannical monsters.
Yeah.
So that's why we don't give them sympathy right there.
Right.
Look, if they're really good, if they're really principled, then they would be willing to put their own hides on the line. But what they do is they stay silent, and they keep that system, backing up that system as if, well, I just got to be quiet to save my own skin. That's self-interest. That is not being afraid. Like, I understand that they could be afraid. Like, my best friend is a police officer, okay? So there are good people who are police officers, but in the function of being a police officer, if you do not stand up when some police officer has done something wrong and say, this is not wrong, or this is wrong, and this is not who we are or who we want to be, then you are doing that for your own self-interest. And let's not play like it's because of anything else. I mean,
well, you had made the comment, you're talking about self-interest and talking about being more afraid of police than of anybody else walking up and down the street. We're capitalists, we're free market people, and so sometimes we talk about incentive structure. We talk about just having just the cold, logical understanding that people are going to pursue their own self-interests and they're going to follow where the incentives lie, and whatever is the easiest path to victory for them or to accomplish their agenda, that's what they're going to do. And that in of itself is not inherently wrong, but we just have to understand that if someone's doing something we don't like or don't approve of, it may very well be because they're just pursuing those interests as they see them. And so we have to take a really hard look at how, if a police officer does not feel, if they do not feel that their job is in jeopardy by their actions, more often than not, if they feel like the thin blue line is going to protect them even when they're wrong, if they are incentivized to be staring you down, looking for you doing something that is deemed wrong by the state so that they can add you to their quota and rack up another charge, get another fine. If that is their incentive, then they will go looking. They will try to find wrong, and they will try to punish you. You want to talk about what a good cop is. A good cop is someone who, supports and protects the community, not someone who is really going far out of their way to find some broken statute because they really need a reason to go nuts. Yeah. Like that is what we have a lot of, and it is unfortunate that many are incentivized to do exactly that. Right.
And it's also a problem that government has a monopoly on that, and that as state agents, they're tried by state agents. They're prosecuted by state agents. So you have a cop who rapes a 13-year-old and gets probation. Like you have cops who clearly shoot someone in the back as they're running away and get off with it. So these are the problems in White County here in Tennessee. The cop that ordered his deputies to shoot that man instead of damage his cruiser. Like, they do not value our human lives or our rights. So
are you trying to
remember that?
Are you trying to imply that if we ask the state to punish the state for when the state makes a mistake, that won't work out? Is that what you're trying to tell me right now?
I think that's what she's doing.
That might be it. Okay. That might be an actual solution. Yeah. And so people say, well, you're not for having any, you just want criminals to be free. No, but there can be law without the state. Mm-hmm. There can be law enforcement without the state. Like, it's being done in communities across the country right now. And we have this conflict of interest that nobody wants to deal with. And that is a problem because they have no repercussions for doing what's wrong. Because, like, with civil asset forfeiture, they're blatantly stealing from people on the side of the road, and yet who's coming? Where's the cops coming forth and saying this is wrong? We shouldn't be stealing from people, right? Or the fact that when they get sued, in a lot of places, it's not the cop themselves getting sued; it's the taxpayers. So the people that are the victims of whatever crime are actually paying for that crime as well. So we really have to just remove it from government completely.
Now, I know I've made the statement many times that I've always believed that if because everyone's always looking for quick fixes, because goodness knows you gotta shove something in the omnibus bill, otherwise you can't get it to work. Right. One of my suggestions of if I had 5 minutes to suggest a change in protocol, it would be make it so that civil court, civil trials of wrongdoing or criminal trials of wrongdoing on the part of police, that any levied fines are not paid for by the city or state or anyone else. They're paid for out of the police pension fund.
Yeah.
If that happened, first of all, that would never go because, boy, you want to see the police unions go nuts. Well, which is funny because that's just their way of saying we don't trust our members to do their jobs well, so we can't tie our futures and fortunes to.
It's the same reason that they were against body cameras, which if you're a good cop, a body camera should be your best friend.
Yeah, you save your butt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so you make it where their pensions are at risk, but from their wrongdoing more viscerally on a day-to-day basis. Then for one, they're the ones who genuinely bear the brunt of wrongdoing.
Yeah.
2, that'll never pass because they'll be up in arms about it. 3, boy, you wanna find a quick way to get yourself start getting pulled over every 5 minutes by your local police force. That'd be one way to do it.
Yeah.
Like we make fun and we laugh about but Sherry, are you backing the blue? The reason why that meme exists is because if you don't and you actually embodied any real threat to their status quo, don't sit here and laugh about it. They will come after you. They will come after you. It's the same thing on a federal level. You're going to start getting audited by the IRS every single year. The TSA is going to hold you for longer. God forbid you roll through that stop sign. You're getting the max ticket every single time. I mean, let's not mince words about it. They will make your life hell if you try to fight the status quo.
Yeah.
And this is where the right really holds the responsibility for this, because the right is they're often the ones that they talk freedom, they say liberty, they say they understand that having an armed populace is to protect themselves from government, but when it comes down to where they could really make a difference and stop worshiping at the altar of authority for 5 seconds and just say that, yes, there are some cops who don't need to be cops, and we need to change the system. There are problems. If they would be honest for that, we could change things, but they're not honest. They don't want to think. They accuse the left of this all the time, but really they also do not want to think about it. They want these sacred authority, figures to be worshipped, and often what you hear is, well, they should have done what the cop said. Yeah, so that should be a death sentence. Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
What?
And I think the problem is that far too many people on the right don't come to that understanding until it happens to them, until they have some kind of small run-in with the law that becomes way more than it should have, because they hold all the cards. You have no power.
I want you to hold on to that thought about every single wrong being a death sentence, because we've got a couple of more topics to cover, and we're gonna come around to the death penalty for all. We're not quite there yet. So
our favorite person.
So before we get there, we're gonna go ahead and do our meme of the week because
we're starting this one early this time.
Yeah, we're doing the meme of the week now because it's related to the last story, and so this is the Gun Saves Lives meme of the week, and I don't think Sherry can see it at home right now, but that's what she gets for going back to Knoxville.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Are you saying you missed me?
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
But you're here with us.
Yeah.
In electronic.
Yeah, hula hoops and all. That's right.
Right.
Here we go.
So this is our meme of the week, and you know what? We do a video show, so I don't feel the need to keep on describing everything in graphic detail. I think it more or less speaks for itself.
Yes,
right there.
It does.
It just plays to the point that it's amazing how two different stories in a news cycle can basically be the exact same story with just a change of a handful of key characteristics that may or may not be construed as different on an ideological scale.
Yeah.
And one is literally, how many, it's not even a matter of having a CNN town hall. Now, I think we're up to multiple CNN town halls now about one news story, and the other one, it's done. It's over. It's been 36 hours, so it's done. We'll never hear about it again.
Right.
And so that's why we have memes, so that we don't hurt ourselves.
Yes.
That's why the memes exist. So we got our meme of the week out of the way, and that's why I wanted to hold on to the concept of the death penalty, because it's time for our favorite segment, which is Jeff Sessions sucks.
Oh, yes, he does.
Jeff Sessions sucks. Yeah, I know. Look at the excitement.
Just look at his face, man.
Look at his face. That's right. So
let's like a mean principal from a high school that just wants to beat children. Look at him, he's like, grr.
Yeah, exactly. You know, this is going to sound so bad, but it's my show, so I can say it.
Okay.
The best thing about Jeff Sessions is how old he is. And I'll let you interpret what that means.
Oh, wow, he's going to die soon.
There you go.
I'm sorry, I had to say that out loud.
Not soon enough.
If he doesn't, then we're going to know there's way more evil afoot than we even realized.
He's a robot.
Yeah. Darn you fascist cyborgs. So
Like Doctor Who, he's a Dalek.
So this is from Rachel Rubin of The Hill. Sessions issues memo on use of death penalty in drug-related cases. So this is a follow-up because he's the top cop. Because we just got done talking about how much we love cops. So the top cop in the land is Jeff Sessions, and he's following up on a directive from President Trump, in which they wanted to pursue death penalty in specific cases of violent drug dealers, which of course, if they're murderers, then we already have laws.
We're already
for
there
murder.
for that.
So yeah, so we're done on that. But also for people that are dealing in particularly high amounts of drugs, I don't know what that number is.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes back to our sort of our running issue of if you make really vague, ambiguous statements like, oh, but that was a lot of drugs. Well, if you don't actually label what exactly that is.
Yeah, what's a lot?
And you actually start pursuing a policy of death, pursuing the death penalty for cases, then you can see where the slippery slope comes down to, well, that guy had a joint, so he's only going to get 30 years, but that guy had 3 joints, so he's dying.
He's going to get beheaded.
We're hanging this
dead.
guy.
He's a dead man.
So by Rachel Rubin here from The Hill, he issued a memo to U.S. attorneys across the country about seeking the death penalty for some drug traffickers. That's part of President Trump's plan to combat the opioid epidemic. He says, I strongly encourage federal prosecutors to use these statutes, when appropriate, to aid in our continuing fight against drug trafficking and the destruction it causes in our nation. Boy, that just sounds so patriotic.
Yeah, it does.
It's like, yes. And so
totalitarian.
I'm not going to sit here and read the whole article, but I just want to point out it does have in quotations, this is for extremely large quantities of drugs. It doesn't say what that is.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
What is that, like a C-130 full or a jumbo jet? Or a ship? I don't know.
Yeah, he points out like 7 or 8 times in this relatively short story about using these statutes when it's appropriate, always in quotation marks. So that's kind of the journalistic way that The Hill is using of saying we have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It's up for the prosecutors to figure out.
And
God knows we don't want them people figuring anything out.
So if you can stand it, I'm going to bring back Sherry one more time. There she is. So that we can talk. Yeah. So this was kind of a double whammy. So we can do drug war follies and Jeff Sessions sucks all roll into one segment. Because he loves to talk about that marijuana and them opioids. So coming from the guy. So let's remind ourselves real quick. So coming from the guy who said that people who are in extreme chronic pain need to take a couple of aspirin and suck it up. That's the guy. They're coming from the guy who said that people that smoke marijuana are inherently bad people, is now the guy who says, you've got my blessing to follow pursuing the death penalty for drug traffickers when appropriate, because
drugs are bad.
Because drugs are bad. And basically just sort of kind of just leaving it up to the wind of when this is applicable, how much is involved. I mean, we're not even getting into the meat and potatoes of the issue of whether, of course, we would say in the drug war, and this is all ridiculous, but we're not even there right this second. Yeah. We're just on a basic label saying, so is the answer kill everybody? I mean, is that really, does your imagination only stretch so far as to say, I see a drug problem, therefore let's start shooting people?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, this is my whole take on this. Why does somebody become a drug dealer in the first place? Well, because they want to be a bad guy. Because they want to do bad things. Well, no, because they're poor and they're desperate and they can't find work. or the education system has failed them, or even if they got a high school diploma, God forbid they went to college and they can't get a freaking job because of their situation.
Well, the economic answer, and I can leave some of the philosophical libertarian side of this to Sherry. The economic answer is that there is a demand for drugs. Full stop. There are people who want drugs, and therefore there will always be people who try to make a supply to meet the demand of people who want drugs. You're calling them bad folks. You're signing more laws. You're threatening to kill them. Doesn't change the economic facts of supply and demand.
Right. There are people who want drugs, and whatever your moral inclination of that is, there are people who want drugs.
So I'm going to flip this back to Sherry because unlike me, Sherry's actually a huge fan of Jeff Sessions. So I'm gonna give her a moment to defend his position. Sherry, go ahead.
Yes, well, we have to. I don't think there is any defense for it, and like I said before, he's a horrible twat of a person. Like, he's just a terrible person. But this is the end result of authoritarianism. That if there's anything you do that we don't like, death, like, or put you in a cage, or whatever, to make you modify your behavior to be a good little slave. And so, not that they have to understand that they've created the problem with the drug war, that they create these people. But I think the reason that they want to continue the drug war is not only just the money that it gives them, but the assertion of power that they can have over people in their lives, and also that it keeps people afraid. So, and the more afraid people are, the easier they are to manipulate. And we have to remember that this whole system is set up to manipulate us. And it sounds crazy, but it really is what they do. Like with the word a lot. Like what was the phrase you said that they? What was people who have a large amount.
Yeah. For it was follow these statutes because actually I'm going to pull that back up real quick just so we can get the
exact verbiage.
Yeah, the exact verbiage. So first of all, you're supposed to follow these statutes when appropriate.
Right, when appropriate.
And also, or, that's not necessarily an and, but an or, dealing in extremely large, quotation mark, quantities of drugs. And so this is just all part of sort of a three-pronged attack to fight the opioid epidemic, but there's no definition of appropriate. Right. There's no definition of extremely large, but there is an absolute. But we know what death penalty means.
Yes. Right. For those people who still buy into the system and think that, that's just crazy talk. That they don't really want to exert that kind of power over us. Why do they use vague words then? The vagueness is on purpose. Because it means that they can make the law say whatever they need it to say.
They can adjust it as necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why terrorism is not defined very well, because you and I could be terrorists because we dissent from the government. Like it's to control, and then with the right, once you say, well, they were about taking down the government. I mean, which I'm not, all of a sudden, then it's okay to do whatever you want to us because we're traitors. If you can label someone a traitor or a terrorist or a drug dealer, they're done. So that there are people who say they believe in freedom, who would never fight for someone because they didn't stand for the stupid national anthem. So they're going to fight for you because you were dealing drugs and you should die for that. Like, they're letting them have so much power that it's going to get to the point where by the time they realize that they've handed all of their rights away, it's too late. Yeah. And then there's not enough boot licking in the world to turn it around.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. On this point, she's saying, like the kids marching out with the guns. Mm-hmm. Okay? It's like the first generation that we've seen of kids marching against their own freedom. Against giving the government power to take away their freedom, and they don't realize what they're doing. They don't realize that, and this is an example of what a lot of people are doing. Myself being a converting to libertarianist point of view person from a right-winged person, I'm beginning to understand a lot of these concepts. And, it makes sense. It's like when you give all this power away, don't be surprised when it comes back and bites you later and all of a sudden your freedoms are taken away.
I
People
will
don't want power not to use it.
Right.
I will say real quick on that point, because I've seen people making that point, and I just because me as a lover of history, I like to point this out, that it's not necessarily the first time, because whether you supported alcohol prohibition or not, that was still trying to take people's rights away.
Exactly.
And there were all sorts of people marching, the goody-goodies were marching in force to get alcohol prohibition passed.
Yeah.
So, believe it or not, there's people who will go march in the streets with their signs to limit rights of themselves and others.
Yeah.
It's
just because they don't do it.
It's a disease
of
itself that people don't,
Let's talk about something else, prostitution. What hurts women who are prostitutes more than anything is the prohibition of prostitution. They have no access to the law because they're afraid if they go and tell that they got raped by someone that, well, you're a prostitute. Like, you shouldn't be doing that. That's against the law, and you get in trouble. So there are so many things, like, it's not saying, this is what people on the right would love you to believe, that saying the drugs should be decriminalized and prostitution should be decriminalized is saying that those things are okay. And that is not it at all. It's saying that I don't have a right to put you in the, cage because you do something I don't like that doesn't harm anyone else.
Right.
Even if it's harmful to you, and I believe that it's harmful to you, you have the right to harm yourself. Like, these are things that you're not just giving an all-out blank slate to say, yes, I think doing heroin is just perfectly fine. But it isn't something that I should have control over in your life, what you choose to do, as long as you're not hurting me.
Exactly.
So, and the gun control thing with the kids, like, they're not for actual getting rid of violence and guns. They're just for the state having all of it, and for them being able to use that violence against you, because they want the cops to come take your guns, but they're going to have to do it with guns. So to them, it's just the ends justifies the means. If people can get disarmed and for, their own ideology, they feel safer. But then what happens when you have a president like President Trump, who they hate, they cannot stand, but now they're arguing for him to have all the guns, for his people, the state to have all the guns. Like, you'd think it would click with them that maybe it's just a bad thing for the powerful to be armed at all. So I would love to see that. And with Trump, too, and Sessions, like, he's talking about draining the swamp, and he's gotten rid of all of his own cabinet members and stuff, but he keeps Sessions in, the guy that wants the death penalty for drug dealers. And you mean to tell me you think President Trump is making America great again? Give me a break. I mean, that's like, it's ridiculous.
I want to say real quick, because we're almost out of time, that a little bit of a callback to last week's episode, that Jeff Sessions is really sending us mixed messages, because last week he was saying the prisons aren't full enough, we got to fill them up, but you can't fill them up if we gas everybody for selling drugs, because so now you're emptying them back out. So Jeff Sessions,
he's just making room for the rest of us.
Tweet us a clarification. Do you want everybody in jail, or do you want everybody dead who disagrees with you? I just generally curious. I don't know. Yeah. I mean either way you're a monster, but I just saying, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer them to all be caged or all be killed? I don't know. No. And to go to something that Sherry was talking about, I was actually just recently writing a paper where we were discussing the compact theory of the Constitution, and the concept that the states delegated rights to the federal government, but that did not delegate their sovereignty. They're still sovereign states. Yeah. And that's a concept that also extends down to an individual level, that we live under a governing body, but we do not, nor can we, delegate rights to that governing authority that we do not possess. So I cannot cage you, I cannot kill you based on a difference of opinion. on what you should or shouldn't. It's not even a matter of can, it's not even a matter of the extenuating circumstances of what you should or should not be able to do for yourself. I cannot kill you or cage you for this. Therefore, how can I possibly have delegated that authority to any other body?
Right.
I cannot possibly have. And so, if you are someone who operates under the inherent understanding that you have the authority to extend your agenda by force onto others, having not derived that authority from anywhere other than your own mind, you're a Nazi.
Yeah.
Like they call us Nazis. No, that's you're a fascist. You are the textbook definition of an authoritarian.
When you use government, when you use it and insist the government laws, enforce your point of view over somebody else's, you're using force. You're putting a gun to somebody's head, but you're not actually holding the gun. You're giving the gun to the government to put a gun to their head so that you get what you want and you force that guy to do what you want. It's morality. Morality's up to the individual, not up to the state, not up to the government to enforce what's right and wrong. I mean, that's morality, in a nutshell.
Yeah, this is where the right fails miserably. Because they don't, they recognize that, well, I don't want to pay for abortions because my taxes pay for, subsidies that go to Planned Parenthood. But, you're a drug dealer? Yeah, the proxy force is I don't have to go out and do that to you, but I can send the proxy over to do that to you. So they feel like they're somehow clean because of it. Well, or that, it's okay that, a few innocent people die because, if we put them to death, because, at least the bad guys won't be getting away. When that's exactly the opposite. You should be going, it's better for some bad guys to get away than for innocent people to be murdered. Let's look to our Christianity. If you're a Christian, let's look to our morality. If you believe in that stuff on the right, and let's actually believe those things, the golden rule and turning the other cheek and these types of things that they profess to believe. What they really believe in is authority and the state. It is the most dangerous religion, as Larkin Rose has said. That is such a beautifully laid out idea, and it is true. I mean, go to any church in the country right now, and the majority of them will have an American flag right up there at the front, and they worship that. It's sacred to them. It's sacred skycloth.
Well, it's like frightening, borderline Orwellian when you think that there are people whose thought process genuinely is, everyone here's the line, and on this side of the line, you take aspirin and suck it up for your overwhelming chronic pain.
Yeah.
And that person is a God-fearing American. And the person who's one step over on this side of the line of, that's not working for me, let me try some CBD gummies. That is just a subhuman piece of filth who's got to die to protect America.
Because he's addicted to
that's
chemical.
Just the fact that you can eat, you're a sociopath. If it's that easy for you to throw off the value of human life and to see them as they're beneath your contempt because they crossed that line and their existence no longer has value in your system. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
These are the same people that, every life is precious. The lives of the unborn are precious, but not the lives of the born, apparently. Not the lives of people who have actually just been through some things, and it comes down to this law-abiding citizen stuff, too. Just because something is a law does not mean it is moral and that it is right.
That's
and
correct.
You are absolutely within your right, and I would say you have a responsibility to disobey immoral laws, because everything Hitler did was legal, right?
Yep.
The people who make the laws are the ones that determine what's right, but people have this there's been so much indoctrination of people in this country to where they go, well, I'm a law-abiding citizen, or I'm a tax-paying citizen. Oh, you're even, greater. But you're allowing them to do things in your name. That's why I don't vote, because nationally anyways, because I cannot be responsible for murders and for theft and for all of the bad things that they do, because I've bought into that system and I keep saying, oh, well, we're going to change things, and the system does not work. Centralized power, that's the nature of centralized power, is to grow.
You know what we need is that when we edit the videos, we have to put up little graphics that slant people's words. So right then I'm going to put up a little graphic that says Sherry voluntary quote, I can't be responsible ... end quote. And that's all it says. I can't be responsible. And that's why we have to have the state, because Sherry can't be responsible. Well, right. Sherry, we're out of time. So I think this is truly the end. Now we'll never see you again, and that's the end of it. No, we will. So let's remind everybody real quick. The Sherry Voluntary Show. Yep, go ahead. Where can they find you?
On Facebook right now at the Sherry Voluntary Podcast, and also Steam It. If you look up Sherry Voluntary, I think it should come up either the podcast or my personal page, and there should be links.
And you can email us those numbers. Those things. We'll put them on the screen for people to see.
Yeah, we're gonna put up right next to the quote of "I'm not responsible" here at the bottom. We'll have. and to follow this, just delinquent. Here's where you can find her. Yep. Sherry, thank you so much for joining us, even though you're not here with your lovely presence or with your just incredibly handsome wrong American husband, Mike. So it's unfortunately we didn't get Mike and his sexy beard today, but we're gonna have to do it again soon with the whole crowd and join in some other friends. That way I can just sort of saunter off the side of the stage and just let it run for an hour, and then Blake can just kill the lights. That's the real dream right there. That's the real dream.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure. I'm glad I've gotten to know you guys. We always have such a good time. So.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Blake, you got anything else to add, or are we good?
No, what's your final thoughts? Let them know about the website. We got the website up.
Oh my gosh. Facebook and that's right. We're a real show. We're supposed to talk about it.
You're supposed to talk about those things.
So, now we've got our website up, so we've got to always mention first. Check us out on the web at our site, thegoldstandardpodcast.com. Yep. But join us on social media, because that's where all the really fun stuff is happening.
That's where you get to put your 2 cents in.
Yeah. It's mostly just wow emojis, but that's fine. In GIFs, because somebody only communicates that way. Yeah. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley. Yep. You can follow me on Twitter at Alan M. Mosley. And if you like what we're doing and you want to support the show 15 cents at a time, you can find us on patreon.com/TGS Alan Mosley.
Yep. We good? All right. And that's it to go. So one more time, we're going to say bye to Sherry. Say bye, Sherry. And wave at the
bye,
people.
Sherry.
Hey, bye. All right. And I guess we'll see you next time.
Join us next week.